Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Barbeno's World. Now, I build a lot of farms here in Barbeno's World, and you probably wonder, what am I ever going to do with all of the drops from all of my farms? And the answer is usually nothing. But today, I think we're going to do something that finally makes good use of all of these farms that I've built. Or at least some of them. And the plan is that we're going to be making some map art. I've already designed the map art that I'm going to do using an online tool called Map Art Craft, which I'll put in the description. Anyways, here it is. It's a really big sort of pixel art of the Barbeno's World logo. A very cool graphic designed by a friend of mine. A lot of map arts you see are often like two-dimensional, and they don't have this crazy staircasing thing, but I used this staircasing method because I want the map to look extra nice, and when you use staircasing, the shadows that it casts create 3 times more colors than are available if you don't use staircasing. Anyways, let's take a look at the map that this whole pixel art thing creates. There it is. That map art generator tool basically just provides us with a schematic file which we can open with Lightmatica, and if you check here you can tell that it's going to take a lot of resources, especially if we're going to build this in survival. But before we start collecting resources or anything, I want to 100% make sure this is all going to work out. So I think I'm going to head over to another world with the Barbeno's World seed, find a place for this, and load in the schematic just to make sure everything works out in a more practical application. Okay, I think this is going to be a good spot just east of spawn here in this big desert. I want to use a desert because lightning doesn't strike there, and if we're using wool, then it will burn. Yeah, this is actually a really massive desert. This is quite a bit better than I anticipated. Alright, let's try opening up a map to see where the corners are going to be. Alright, this looks like pretty good placement. Maybe I'll find one without the river. Okay, so I realized the flatness of the ground doesn't really matter because it's going to be on a slant anyways. So I picked a slightly new location, and let's try pasting it in and checking if the map works. Okay, it's pasting in. Okay, I think we're done. Let's give it a check. That is so sick. It actually looks really good now. I slightly tweaked the map design a little bit in the map maker, and I think it's quite perfected. Okay, let's actually take note of these placement origins so that we can take a look at this in survival. Wow, this schematic looks so much bigger in survival. I have no experience with map art, so hopefully this doesn't take like thousands of hours to build. Anyways, before I do anything else, I want to take a map of this area, just so I can see what it looked like before I built anything here. Alright, that's nice. We can also lock this. Good stuff. Now I guess it's time to finally look at the dreaded materials list for this thing. It's quite a big one. Alright, as you can see, basically the main things that we're going to need are white wool, prismarine bricks, other colors of wool, gold, and lapis. So I actually think I do have everything except for this wool and maybe the prismarine. But the thing about the wool is we're going to need 12,000 of it. That's more than 7 shulkers. And all of the white wool is basically just for the background. And I could have done this without a background. I could have just built it on the water or something. But I really just wanted it to be like a perfect map art with no blemishes at all. And that, I think the white background is really going to sell the look of it not being a map and more just being like a poster. Alright, so starting with the wool here, we have a little bit to start off with. We have 2.5 shulkers in the mass storage area, and this has taken quite a while to accumulate because I don't have any really fast wool farms, and since my wool farm that I built produces all of the colors of wool at once and not just white wool, it's kind of slow if you just want one color. So I think the fastest way to get white wool is just going to be AFKing at my mob farm for a string and then crafting that into wool. I also have a small wool farm near spawn that I can be running with 4 white sheep. So at that rate, we should get about 6 stacks per hour, and it should take maybe just a couple nights to get all of the wool that we need. And I just checked my stashes. I don't have enough prismarine either, so I'm gonna have to be AFKing here as well. Okay, I think it's time for a farming montage. Welcome back, everybody. This has probably been one of the longest, if not the longest, resource collecting operation that I've done here in Barbeno's world. But I'm finally done, and I'm quite sure that I have every single block that I'm ever going to need. And during this resource collecting operation, I had to spend a really long time AFKing at the wool farms. It was probably at least 24 hours, and then a little bit for the prismarine, maybe 4 or 5 hours. And then something that I actually forgot about is the lapis lazuli blocks, which I don't actually have a farm for, and I needed a ton of them, and I had to mine for all of these manually, and I did a little bit of villager trading. I'm still not sure what's faster, whether it's mining or trading. Okay, I guess there is no time to waste. We really should start on this now. So before we should build the main part, I want to start building out this, which is basically just a bottom area. It's not actually going to be on the map. But when we do this, we also will need to clear out some sand over there, and that's about it. Okay, that looks good. We've got this base area here, which runs the entire length of the map, and we can just build up from this row by row. So I really guess I should just start doing that. I'll probably time-lapse it, but there's no I'm going to be able to do this all in one sitting. So I'll just see how far I get. Welcome back, everybody. I've spent a few hours working on the map art already, and I think it's coming along really well. Just from looking at it, you might think it's about half done or more, but really it's not. I think my progress is decent, but there's still a lot more work to do. If you check out the map that I've got in my hotbar here, you can see that we have most of the white wool in, which is just going to be the background, but we haven't really started on the text, which is going to be the most difficult part because that's got a bunch of block variation. As you might have seen in the time-lapse, I started by going row by row, just going all the way up like this, and then moving on to the next one and going all the way up like this, and so on. But I realized this is probably not the best way of doing it because I needed to keep changing depending on what area I'm going through. I kept needing to change the block. So instead, I went ahead and placed in all of this white wool down here using like multiple rows at a time. And yeah, just now I'm starting to move on to actually doing the text, which is the complicated part. Since we are now reaching that complicated part, I think it's probably a good idea to go back to doing it more systematically, row by row. So I'll load in the schematic and show you how I'm going to do this for one of the rows. And I've got some blocks in the hotbar, so I think we're ready to go. So it looks like this row is going to be the next one up. And the way I do this is made a lot easier by using the Tweakaroo mod with the accurate placement feature, so that I don't need to place down so many scaffolding blocks. I can just place the blocks on an angle. Anyways, it's pretty boring. I just follow this exact schematic as I go up. And as I go, I can also check the map just to make sure everything's looking good, and yeah, it looks fine. As you can see, I'm finishing up with that row of pixels there, and yeah, it's going good. Alright, now back to that time lapse. I will get back to you when this is all done. Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that time lapse, and hopefully it didn't get corrupted, because that was definitely my longest single replay mod recording that I've done. And yeah, that I guess brings to a close one of my biggest projects that I've done. I don't know if it's the biggest, but as you can see here in my right hand, I have the Barbeno's World logo map. Very nice. Now if you look at the two maps in either of my hands, you can see a very nice before and after comparison of what I've done here. This is actually really crazy because this is a very large area of land, but on a map it's just completely transformed. So yeah, I'm very happy with it, and I really like how the map looks. You probably saw it in the time lapse, but we can also check out an aerial view of the whole map. This feels really big, especially when flying around in survival. And yeah, if you haven't already realized, one single block in this area is equal to 1 pixel on the map. And since the map is 128 by 128, I needed to place over 16,000 blocks for this. But I would say definitely worth it. It really didn't take as long as I expected. And yeah, I'll probably do this again if I have anything interesting to make map art for. So now that we're done with the map, we can go head back to base and decide what we're going to do with it. And now that we're back here, I'm going to take some time to organize all of the extra materials that I have, because I did collect a few extra stacks for every single block, just so I was fine if I wasted some. Now, with the map, I am going to want to make some copies of it. I've locked the map now. And if we put it in a cartography table, we can just duplicate it by combining it with an empty map, like that. So I guess I'll just do this a bunch of times. Okay, now that I've got all these maps, I don't really have much to do with them except to use them as decoration, which is what I'm gonna do. So, yeah, I replaced the carpets that were here with some Barbeno's World logos. Looks very nice, and yeah, as I go, I'll find other places to put them, I guess. At this point, I'm really just looking for more reasons to look at this map. It's so cool. But I had the idea to also put it here in the world spawn room, so I guess I can put it like here on the ender chest. Okay, that looks a bit better. Let's go find some more places. Okay, I think that might be just about all there is to do for this map art project, and since I think there should be a bit more time left in this episode, I have one more project that's planned. So I've set aside this area in my village for a chapel or small church to the right side as you're entering the village, and I have actually planned out a design for the church, and I am ready to build it now, but first I'm going to warn you that It uses some blocks that are a little bit different from the stuff that we've been doing elsewhere in the village, and I kind of wanted it to stand out from the other ones, but yeah, let's do that build. Okay, I'm done with the build now. We can go check it out. Yeah, as I said, this build is quite a bit different from the other ones, but I think that's okay, and I do want to try diversifying my build style in this village as I go. But yeah, this build, I tried to use a gradient pattern that went from gray up to white. When I was designing this, I started out building the shape, and it really wasn't looking good with just stone and stone bricks, so then I tried adding in some other blocks, and eventually I settled on this gradient thing, which I think was quite a success. You can also see that I added a bunch of leaves around here, and that's because I thought it looked pretty bad without it. I am planning on adding these leaves in other places around the city, but for here I think it really just needed the leaves to look at all decent. As usual, the interior is empty. We actually have two entrances here. I might end up plugging this one up later when I get around to building the interiors. But for now, I think this is very good, and I will leave it as it is. Alright, now before I get too carried away with this, I think it's probably time to finish up the episode. So that's gonna be it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. There was a lot of work, especially on that map art that we did. So, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
Barbeno's World, Barbeno's World.